Hi there, this is Matt with State of Flux, and this is sort of more of a conversational video. I wanted to address for some time my thoughts on the Hulu cancellation of the Buffy reboot, and so I kind of had that story on the back burner for a little while, and then it became very much on the forefront of my mind after the passing of Brendon. For those not in the know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is my favorite piece of art of all time. Buffy and its spin-off Angel are two of the most important films or television shows or anything in the filmic landscape for me. And so this is kind of going to be probably a relatively long video, so I plan on putting in chapters. So you can skip to the parts that you're interested in. But I just kind of felt the need to address and pay my respects to the man who embodied one of my all-time favorite characters. That, in and of itself, is somewhat of a controversial take, especially given the fact that the person I'm paying respects to also is not immune to some well-deserved controversy himself. So let's take this in parts. First things first, let's talk about the Buffy of it all right off the bat. My thoughts, and I think there's a video of it, and if there is, I will link it right here. When they announced a Buffy revival of sorts through Hulu and Chloe Zhao, I was very cautiously optimistic. I think this is a story that needs to transcend the time that it originally was encapsulated in. It's something that is core to every time period. By nature, it's literally there in the opening prologue. Into every generation a Slayer is born, and the fact that we haven't gotten the next generation of Slayer is kind of disheartening, because this is a story that is important. It's got layers of meaning and can represent what needs to be represented in any given time period, and for the people that need a hero. That's what spoke so beautifully with Buffy, was that it reached the people that were kind of on the fringes of pop culture to some extent. And certainly Buffy was a breakout success to some extent, but it always kind of remained on just the outside, and it spoke to those people. The creator, Joss Whedon, always had that quote. He's satisfied that the show reached as wide as it did, but he never made a show for a million people to like. He made a show that 100 people would love, and that's why he did that. And that's something that always kind of spoke to me. But when you think of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, again, to bring another kind of Joss paraphrase or quote into it, every single word in that title matters. You have Buffy, which tells you this is going to be a comedy. You have Vampire, that tells you it's going to be a horror on some level. You have Slayer, which tells you that it's going to be an action. And "the" is the only word that's not necessarily necessary, but it's there for dramatic effect. Also, the show is quite dramatic. And when you think of Chloe Zhao, you don't get humor or horror or action. That's not what comes to the forefront. I really quite like Eternals, but it's not because of the amazing depiction of action in that storytelling, or like wicked humor that was brought forth in that story. That's not to say that she's not capable of doing it. She's an incredible filmmaker. And for those who haven't seen it, check out Hamnet. It is really, really good. But I thought she was just such an odd choice, but my fear didn't come even necessarily from the respect of Chloe Zhao. Um, it came from the sense of like, how do you tell this story without certain key characters? If you're going to have Buffy in it at all and not just as a cameo, for her presence, she needs a couple key characters around her, and I could see how she and Willow could drift. Their friendship, which was so core in the beginning of the show, seemed to fade away, and in seasons 6 and 7, their closeness isn't as integral to the show. And that was kind of noticeable. So if, like, Willow were to fall away, I kind of would understand that. Same thing with Giles. Giles spent much of the back half of that series trying to leave Buffy. So if you don't bring back Giles, you don't have to. The two characters that I think are the most important in Buffy's life that would never, ever leave her side are her sister Dawn and Xander Harris, her best friend, the heart of the show. And I just don't feel like you could organically tell a Buffy story without acknowledging them or including them in some way. And by the time this announcement kind of came out, Michelle Trachtenberg had already passed away, suddenly and shockingly. You can see my thoughts on that right up here. But that was like the first blow where I was like, I don't know how you do this without Dawn. And I know that Sarah Michelle Gellar teased that they acknowledged Dawn in some respect, but I just don't see her not being there. And the other one was Xander. Now, the actor who plays Xander had, at the time, had quite a bit of a chaotic downwind career trajectory, and his acting output kind of minimalized for quite a bit, and he had a lot of arrests and abuse issues and allegations, many of them substantiated and very credible, and then some of which was more substance abusey. And it didn't seem like he would be likely to be included in the show in that sense, or if he was, there wouldn't be pushback to it, which is all perfectly fine. I understand that. But that is the person and not the character. And the truth is that I don't see how Xander wouldn't be by Buffy. And it's not like you can just recast. I mean, I suppose he has a twin in real life, so you can recast Nicholas Brennan with his brother, Kelly. Donovan, I believe, is what he always credited himself as. But that I also don't think is what would happen, right? So that was my big area of skepticism. And so when I heard that this show got canceled by Hulu, half of me was pretty disappointed. Because if nothing else, I was getting an opportunity to get new Buffy. I was going to have a chance to reconnect with this character. Now, reboots and legacy sequels don't always land gracefully. I think they land very ungracefully a majority of the time. That being said, this is my favorite property, and my favorite film property is Scream, and I think they did the legacy sequel thing quite good. You can watch my reviews for those up here. But I was pretty disappointed, but at the same time I was also kind of relieved in the sense that Buffy ends so perfectly for me that I don't have opportunity to be disappointed by what comes next. I almost feel like to revive the show, you either do a traditional reboot where you just get a brand new Buffy and do the remake route. However, I think in today's way of telling the show, they would just write out this character, or they would kill him off as they did in the Buffy Boom comics, or made him a true villain, because that's a thing that happened as a vampire and stuff like that. So you could do like the hard reboot route, or just have her show up as like a cameo in Dreams or something like that, or like Slayer Vision Guide like we got with the first Slayer and stuff like that. Having her as a recurring character, I think, is where the biggest hang-up is. So, then I heard the further extent of that, of Sarah's accusation that this all came down to one executive who very much doesn't like Buffy, has never watched it, and he made that proudly known, and it seemed like he willfully made this, but then there seemed to be some somewhat credible questions as to whether or not the script that was being filmed or written was maybe not up to snuff, and that the pilot didn't necessarily seem as exciting or youthful or oriented to who they want this thing to reach out to. Maybe it was too youthful. There was a lot of questions there that I think are all wrapped up in like the politics of filmmaking. But my big hang-up was, I still don't see how you do this without those two people, and then the other of those two people happened to pass away on Friday. So to me, that is the end of Buffy as we kind of know it in my mind, because Sarah didn't seem to have any problem burning any bridges with the exec involved at Hulu, who, by the way, F him. But also, so I don't know how eager or willing that studio is going to be to have her brought back. But you also have two incredibly key components to the show, regardless of how you include the character of Buffy. You have to write out both of these characters in some way, and have to acknowledge it. And I just think it's hard, right? I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think the better strategy for this would be sort of like they did in the comic books. Early in the 2000s, there was a series of Buffy comics just called Tales of the Vampires and then Tales of the Slayers. I think do something like that, maybe do an anthology series and just pick a generation and give us a generation of different Slayers each season, or if you want to go the dark route, do like different vampires and stuff through history and whatnot. That's how you do it. That's how I would do it. That way we get to see maybe an updated generation of Slayer, and maybe we do get an occasional cameo. But I don't see having a recurring presence. That doesn't necessarily work for me as much. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling on that. That's kind of my soft take on the Hulu thing. It's a weird sense of disappointment, but also relief. Because disappointment because no more Buffy, relief because they can't taint the perfection that was. Disappointment also because I think this show coming out and being somewhat of a hit or something, or the ramp up for the show's release, is the clearest shot that we have of getting a remaster of all the Buffy, and so that we don't have to stick with our sad DVDs that are very much beginning to deteriorate, which is sad because that's the only way to watch true Buffy, and I urge you not to necessarily watch how they are presented on Hulu currently, and to seek out those discs. So pivoting from that, I want to acknowledge Nicholas Brendon and his presence in the television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I teased early on that he was an incredibly important character for me. I was like 11 years old when the show debuted, and I caught the very first episode when it first aired on the WB. And I saw opening night. I didn't watch the whole show, like all of season one. I watched just that dual pilot. And I liked it, but I didn't keep up with it because I think I was still in like Boy Scouts and stuff at the time. Um, I didn't pick back up with it until about a year and some change later when Scream 2 had come out. And I was a huge fan of Scream. That's my other big like fandom. And Sarah Michelle Gellar being in that and being so good in her couple of scenes in that film, I was like, that's Buffy. I should really watch that. That was a good show. Why don't I watch the whole thing? And so I started watching, and I caught Becoming Part 1 and 2, and then my fandom kind of kicked off from there, and I watched the whole of season 3, 4, and I kind of fell off for a little bit, and until the DVDs came out. And when season 1 DVD came out, I bought that, and watching it like in the binge method, I was hooked. And I have never not been hooked since my freshman year of high school. And it's something that I've watched this show more than I've watched any form of media in my life. It is the most important piece of art to ever touch my life, and the character of Xander Harris is one of the most important characters who modeled the person who I am. That is not to say that I am the nice guy trope of a human being. That is to say that he is a reflection of what it is to be human on that show. And his character is unique in that sense. He's the only true human, non-magically inclinated or affiliated character throughout the entirety of the series. And really both series. I suppose Gunn you could make a soft argument for, but he vamps out in the comics and stuff. Xander's kind of where it's at, and because of that, he's a reflection of what it is to be a flawed human being. He comes with these qualities that are innately likable. He is funny. He's sort of like the Chandler of this show, Chandler Bing from Friends, which is a vital component because when you have a show as absurd as Buffy often could be, having a character like this to undercut really helps to underscore the qualities present within the dramatic storytelling that you are doing. And it's really quite excellent use of character in that sense. And even the biggest naysayers will argue that at the very least Xander is funny, which makes it all the more difficult to dislike him for being a figurehead of the nice guy trope. But I think the people who really degrade the character for being an embodiment of that are really, really honing in on the first 2 seasons and like 7 episodes of season 3. And they're discounting the credit, or discrediting the character's arc throughout the entirety of the series. The whole nice guy thing definitely rears its head by the end of season 1 and comes back several times during the Angelus storyline of season 2 and really is last seen in full force in the season 3 episode Revelations. And he is not likable in those scenes. However, he's also not meant to be likable. He's meant to make a point. And he's meant to make a point that you can see and understand, but you also know that there is not the whole truth governing his thoughts and whatnot, because he does hold this, let's call it fondness for Buffy, and this sense of male entitlement. But at the same time, he learns and grows. And what I saw as a kid growing up, who was roughly and generally the same age as this character by the time I hit a freshman in high school, who was a year older than everybody else, what I saw was myself reflected in a character that I had not seen besides maybe Randy Meeks. who also harbors a lot of these same tendencies. Um, what I saw reflected there, I also saw how this character grew and changed and learned, but I learned from him of the things maybe I ought not to do, or the beliefs that I ought not to have, because I saw the truth behind what was governing Xander's motives, particularly during the angel of it all. So when people attack this character, I think they're also missing completely the value of it for the people like me out there who maybe could have understood this character, but then is learning from this character. And not in the sense that it's like, in like, I can relate to that to the point where like, oh, I am relating to this. Maybe I need to take a step back and self-reflect. And that is what Xander represents. And the fact that people really, who dislike this character, really hone in on those first couple of seasons, are truly missing how this character changes. I challenge anybody who's never seen this show to watch just the pilot episode, Welcome to the Hellmouth and Harvest, season 4, episode 1, The Freshman, and then like season 7, one of the Xanderific episodes like Potential or Dirty Girls, and see how that character grows and change. You see the comedic through line of the character, the sarcasm that's used as like a point of deflection that character has, but you will see a difference there in how he is represented and his relationship with Buffy in all 3 of those examples, or Dawn in the Potential episode. That's where you see something unique. You see how he changes. It's not the same thing. And I feel like his character unjustly gets picked on through a modern lens, where we are completely accepting to other characters who maybe do stuff just as gross as Xander, yet we're far more forgiving because it happens towards the back half of the series, i.e. your Spikes and your Willows and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's my soft defense of the character of Xander. Moving on to Nicholas Brendon, he gave an embodiment to this character that I think is really incredible. In the first season, he wasn't as seasoned of an actor, and I don't want to say it shows, because he still works incredibly well, and like he still has an innate likability to him on screen, just like in how the camera responds to him and the energy he brings to every scene. But you can also tell that there's an uneasiness there, and maybe he's not up to the same caliber of performance as certainly a Sarah Michelle Gellar or Anthony Stewart Head or even Allison Hennigan at the time. That's something that also grows and changes with the character of Xander, is Nicholas Brendon's comfort in this character and in front of the camera, and his ability to act beyond just being the sarcastic funny guy. He can bring pretty weighty emotion. And by the time you get to something like Hell's Bells, that works as well as it does because he's capable at that point to deliver that and take complete ownership over his dramatic scenes. He has one of my favorite scenes in the entire show in the 5th season, where he's professing his love to Anya right after or as Riley leaves. Once he sees somebody else in a similar situation, as one relationship crumbles, his relationship strengthens because he recognizes the importance of telling those how you truly feel. What Nicholas Brendon brings to that is fantastic. And I think if we were to just look at his work in a bubble, the Buffy bubble, you see an actor who maybe is a little uneasy, but grows and strengthens as each season progresses, to the point where he's a fully capable and competitive actor, not fighting for attention for a scene, but capable of taking over a scene as needed, and he did a great job with that character. But he acted beyond Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He did a lot of sort of schlock horror or horror adjacent stuff, a genre fare. Two that I particularly like during the Buffy days is a horror comedy called Psycho Beach Party that he plays a surfer dude, and he's super fun in that role. That movie's super fun. It also stars Amy Adams in one of her first starring vehicles. That is a really underrated movie so long as you vibe with beach movies or hate them to the point where you want to see a movie that kind of makes fun of them. But Nicholas Brendon is quite great in that movie. But my favorite movie of his from his like genre fare early career is a film called Pinata Survival Island, or at least that's how it is on my like DVD copy of it. I think it's been rechristened, or was originally christened, Demon Island. But this is a movie about a pinata made by native people on this island that gets reawakened when a bunch of people are filming a like competition reality thing there. And it's like a couple's retreat kind of thing. But he and his girlfriend, played by Jamie Presley, had just broken up, and they're forced to be together, shackled, when this pinata awakes, and the spirits of the natives that were held within start killing the contestants. And it has no business being as decent of a movie as it is. Like, it doesn't have a good Rotten Tomatoes or Letterboxd score, but I think it, as far as straight to video kind of horror movies with absurd concepts go, this is definitely like infinitely better than something like Jack Frost, right? Or like it's made on the same budget of those films, Jack Frost and Jack Frost 2, Revenge of the Mutant Killer Snowman. But it's made so much better filmmakers and better caliber of actors in front of the camera. Nicholas Brendon and Jamie Presley absolutely help with that, and this is probably the only video in the world you're going to see high praise for that. And it's one of those things where I've thought about doing that for my like podcast at some point, the Why We Horror podcast. You should watch that here. But one I'm definitely going to cover for that, and maybe I might bump it up sooner now that Nicholas passed, is a sort of fringe sci-fi horror film called Coherence. And it's soft, supernatural, and maybe I don't want to give too much away because a lot of people don't know about this movie, but it's his best reviewed movie on Rotten Tomatoes. And he has a movie that was supposed to come out last year that the filmmakers held on to, which I believe is coming out next year, called You'll Always Be There or something like that. It's something similar to that vibe anyway, for a title. I'll always be there, you'll always be there. It has always in the title. That was held because Nicholas Brendon had some surgery done and they were waiting for him to heal appropriately from it so that they could do the indie film circuit, because he apparently gives an incredible performance in it. And just seeing some of the stills that director has posted online, it does look like it's an impressive feat of his performance work. So I want to see that. I hope that makes the light of day. I would really like to see what could be his final screen performance. But all of that is to say that he also was an incredibly problematic individual. He had substance abuse issues that became like forefront of the public eye, and he had violence issues domestic abuse issues targeting his girlfriends, and some of them are pretty severe. One involved like strangulation, one involved like threatening with a knife and stuff like that. And granted, he was under the influence during these periods. That doesn't excuse the man he had developed into when under the influence. And disappointment really kind of came into my circle surrounding this man, with it seemed like each news story that seemed to hit there for about a 3-year period. He just couldn't seem to keep himself out of scrutiny of his actions, and his well-deserved scrutiny. And I do want to take the time to acknowledge that, because I can recognize and reflect on the qualities this person has and what I enjoy from his work and whatnot, while also acknowledging that he hurt a couple of people in pretty significant ways and whatnot. But I also have to reflect on the fact that I did have such a deep adoration of him as a performer that I even got a chance to meet him in 2017, between some of the rehab stints / domestic violence arrests. But I got to meet him and briefly explain his importance to me. I met him, Charisma Carpenter, and James Marsters at a con, and got my picture taken with them, and I was like absolutely geeking out. And he was very nice. He had a very firm handshake. James Marsters has unusually soft hands. That man knows how to moisturize, let me tell you. And Charisma Carpenter was incredibly nice, and I really, really like her, and she smelled very nice too. But that was one of the most important moments of my entire existence, like Sam's getting married and having children and stuff like that. That's like one of the key moments of my life. And finally getting to meet your idols, and particularly with the characters of Xander and Cordelia. These are my two favorite characters on their respective shows. And that was a significant moment for me. So I just wanted to take a moment to pay respects to a complicated individual that has an incredibly important role in a complicated show that is also wrapped up with its own issues and scrutiny, that all of which is deserved. But I can't help but love and see the importance of these things. And if Buffy and Angel taught me one thing, it is that everybody has the capacity to do something quite good and great, and everybody has the capacity to do some pretty awful things. But those shows instilled within me the belief that people can do better, and that they try, and it's a day-to-day thing. And sometimes we lose that battle, and sometimes we work ever so hard to win it. And I'd like to think that all the people involved with this show, who are problematic individuals themselves, are working on bettering themselves, because it really did frame my entire belief structure. I believe in people, and I believe that we can do good and we can do better. And it's characters like this that have taught me that. And I think that's important. So I've rambled on a lot. To sum up, Hulu's Buffy cancellation is Disappointing because we probably will never get the restoration that I want of the original Buffy show and its sister show Angel. Disappointing because we're not going to be living in a world with new Buffy, and Sarah Michelle Gellar likely not coming back to this role, especially after potentially burning bridges with the a-holes at Hulu who preemptively attacked the show on a mean-spirited kind of whim that seemed to go against what adoring fans seem to want. But also relief because the legacy of the show will not be tarnished by a legacy sequel that may not land on its feet, as many legacy sequels don't. To sum up, Nicholas Brendon brought life to a character that, though complicated and confusing and maybe not working under a present-day modern lens, I think some of those people are looking at that lens very myopically and not pulling back and seeing the big picture and the importance of Xander as a teaching tool and the importance of that character's function in the show. He is truly the heart of the show, and were he not there, you really have something that is a lesser show for it. And then lastly is my respects paid to the man whose work, though wasn't super prolific, was quite good. I always looked forward to watching him. I also give you a chance, if you can find it, a show called Kitchen Confidential. He's really quite good in that. That was like only 6 or 7 episodes that were made starring him, Bradley Cooper, and John Cho. Fantastic show. But he put a lot of good work out there, but that's also not to say that the individual behind that, the man himself, Nicholas Brendon, wasn't a problematic individual that we should take the time to acknowledge and pay our respects to the people he definitely hurt. Yet, I think the legacy of this man is that he is going to have embodied a character that is important to a great many people in a show that's important to a great many people, even if that character and that show are and remain and probably will forever be tied up in their own controversies, a lot of which are justified. So there you have it. That's I've been talking to you for like 40 minutes, but this is important stuff to me, and I hope you took the time to listen. Let me know what you thought of everything in the commentary down below. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and peace.